Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Ameritech Talks. I'm Christina, Growth and Partnership Manager here at Ameritech. Today's episode is different. It's not about AI or software innovation, it's about something far more personal and powerful: the ongoing invasion of Ukraine and what it means to us as a company, as individuals, and as people who believe in freedom. I'm honored to be joined by Greg Ross, our founder and CEO. Many of you know Greg as the strategist behind Ameritech, but what you might not know that Greg has a deeply personal connection to Ukraine. He's been there multiple times. He's walked on the streets of Bucha, Irpin, and Borodyanka. He's seen with his own eyes what the invasion has done. Greg, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for doing this interview. I think this is really wonderful to let people know what our heart is on Ukraine. So thank you, Christina.
Thank you very much. Let's maybe start at the beginning. You've spent a lot of time in Ukraine. Can you tell us what your experience has been like visiting the country?
Wow. Well, that's a good question to start off with. So I think, first of all, I just want to say I love Ukraine. I think it's an absolutely wonderful country. And by the way, there's a lot of Americans that share my opinion on that. We all love Ukraine. So I don't think that the decision to support Ukraine or to love Ukraine is in any way controversial. I think it's natural. And when you travel to the country and you meet the people and you experience the culture, it just really opens your eyes to how wonderful and beautiful Ukraine is and Ukrainians are. So I've been very fortunate to travel to Ukraine multiple times and to meet a lot of people there. I have a lot of good friends in Ukraine. Not just in those cities that you mentioned, but I've also traveled to Kyiv, to Lviv, and to other cities as well in Western Ukraine and along the border with Belarus. I've been to the villages close to the Belarus border, and I've seen village life, and I've been to the big cities like Kyiv, and I've seen what that's like. And what I tell everyone is, the cities themselves are beautiful. I remember visiting Kyiv for the first time and just looking at the architecture and the scenery. It was like this beautiful European city, kind of similar to like a Paris or a London, but safer and with better food. Actually, if I may say that, that might be a little controversial, but it's kind of true. So had a really great time there. And you just have this beautiful kind of European architecture and these beautiful archways and statues. And it's right on the river, and it's such a scenic, pretty area. And then you go to Lviv, and it's like this kind of older style, like European city, and it's just so amazingly beautiful. And you have these vibrant streets where people are playing live music in the evenings, and there's a lot of people socializing and out talking and walking with friends, and it just has this feeling like a really vibrant live city. But I would say like they're different cities. Kyiv is very different from Lviv, so it's very interesting to kind of see both of them and get to know people in both places. But in general, I think it really opened my eyes, because before I went to Ukraine, Christina, I had no idea what Ukraine was like. I literally knew nothing about Ukraine. I didn't know if it's going to be super rural country or, what it's going to be like. But when I went there, I was amazed to see the cities, the technology. Ukraine is a very technologically advanced country. So you have all of these technological advancements, all of these tech companies, and it's very progressive in terms of technology. Also, I remember traveling through Kyiv and kind of looking around thinking, wow, if I didn't know better, I would think I was in San Francisco right now. The architecture is very similar. You have tech companies everywhere. The food is amazing. So I think, I just can't say enough good things about Ukraine. I have no apprehensions about traveling there. I've never felt in danger. I've always felt safe coming to Ukraine. And the people are so warm and hospitable. So I would actually encourage other American people, if you have the chance, go visit Ukraine, see what it's like there, and be prepared, because it will become quickly one of your favorite countries to visit.
Thank you very much for so warm words about Ukraine. It actually makes me really happy that there are people who appreciate and see this beauty as we do here. And actually, it brings me to the next point what you mentioned. You've seen firsthand what happened in some of the cities that were occupied by Russian forces. Can you share what you witnessed in places like Bucha or Irpin? What impact did that have on you personally?
Yeah. So when I traveled to Bucha, first of all, Bucha and Irpin are very close together. They're very, very close together. The cities border each other. So it almost feels like you're traveling to one kind of larger city. But I had an opportunity to travel through both places. And we drove from Western Ukraine. So we came to Borodyanka first, which was the first place that I saw as we were traveling along the highway, really a significant level of destruction in the city. I would say before that, you may have seen a place where a rocket hit somewhere, or maybe hit a building, or I think we passed by a big, crater that had a van kind of sticking out of it. So you would see things like that here and there. But when we got to Borodyanka, it was like the first place where you really saw the large scale destruction of the city. And so we took the exit off of the highway and we drove through Borodyanka, and we stopped by some apartment high-rise buildings that were right there off of the highway. There's like a big roundabout with a big Ukrainian flag there, I think some statues, and then you come to these apartments. And we got out of the car, and the first thing that struck me as I'm standing there at street level looking up at these huge buildings where these people are living was the destruction. It was obvious when you looked at these buildings that they were not hit by a stray bullet or a stray, tank shell that got fired and flew past its target. It was really apparent that the Russian military had literally driven down the main street of the city with tanks and armored vehicles and soldiers with machine guns, and they had opened fire on every single apartment building, every single civilian structure. Restaurants were destroyed. The pharmacy was destroyed. The markets were destroyed. The apartment high-rise buildings were destroyed. You could tell that some of them had exploded. There was rubble and debris from the buildings laying out in the street. You could tell that some of them had caught on fire and burned with people struggling to escape. And so arriving there, we arrived there, Christina, just a number of weeks after the Russian forces withdrew from those cities. And it was still fresh enough that I could really tell a lot of civilians must have died in that attack. And this was not like what we consider in America to be a war or a military confrontation where you have two armies fighting each other. This looked to me like an invasion, like the Russian military came in and intentionally destroyed as many civilian structures as possible. And I don't think that they cared whether the people died or evacuated. I think they were there to terrorize and to drive people out of those cities. And so it was extremely distressing to see that. I kind of view that as like large scale evidence of war crimes being committed, because in America, if we did that, if we sent our military to drive through civilian streets and just shelled every civilian building with the people still inside, you can imagine what the outcry would be. That's a war crime. It's not appropriate. So that was the first place really that I got to see that. And while we were there, they were having a funeral for some soldiers in the town. And there were hundreds of people that had gathered in the town square. They had Ukrainian flags out, but you could really also see the look on people's faces, the sadness and the heartache there. So it was really difficult to see the people suffering like that. Then we traveled to Bucha and to Irpin. We had an opportunity to visit Bucha. We traveled through the streets. The electricity was still out when we were there. People were kind of picking up the pieces of their lives. Same story. Every street that you drove down, you saw nothing but bullet holes everywhere. Bullet holes in every fence, in every home, every window shot out. I mean, it was obvious that the people were inside of those houses being attacked. And then we traveled to Irpin, where we saw the river where the bridge had collapsed. And we heard the stories about the people that had literally tried running for their lives. And because the bridge was collapsed, they had to try to run and then swim across that river. And the Russian forces posted up there and literally just slaughtered everybody that tried to run for their lives. And you could see when you were at that place, the bullet holes everywhere where people had been shot at, some of them in civilian cars and some of them on foot trying to escape and trying to swim to get out of the city. So I stood on the edge of that famous bridge. It's in a famous photograph that was circulated through the news media worldwide that shows that bridge collapsed with the van kind of plunged into the water where people were evacuated out of the city. They kind of set up boards so they could walk across, but I got to see that place. Also, while we were there, we went to a place that I call the car graveyard, which was a big, huge parking lot that was full of civilian vehicles that had been attacked with the people still inside. And I saw cars stacked 4 high, 5 high for hundreds and hundreds of yards, just row after row after row. There must have been at least 1,000 civilian vehicles there that were just peppered with bullet holes. And the bodies had been removed by the time that I was there, but there were still kind of, remnants of the destruction and the death there. You could tell. And when I walked past the cars and looked in the windows, I could see things like children's blankets in the back seats and just horrible things that, were evidence of the people that died in those vehicles. Bullet holes in the driver's and passenger seats, through the windshields, cars burned and just down to just a burned out skeleton. Not just cars, by the way, buses. I think there was a school bus in that pile. There were civilian buses that were taking people around the city, work vans and trucks, all destroyed. So that was really, really sad to see that. And some Ukrainian school children, I think, had come through after the bodies were removed and had painted sunflowers on the sides of the cars. So it was really something that you see and you never forget. It just was the horrible ugliness of war, which is a horrible, horrible thing. And then you had the kind of the beautiful images painted by the school children to try to, I guess, just improve the optics and put something positive there. So it was really interesting to see that. The other thing that I'll share with you that I saw what's called the Street of Death in Irpin. So when the Russian forces were occupying the city, and I heard first-person accounts of this, so from multiple people. So I know that this is true, and I visited the site. There's a long street there. The Russian forces announced that there would be a bread delivery. And so the people who were stuck in the city gathered in that street, elderly people, women, children, with bicycles. And instead of a bread delivery, they opened fire on those people and killed them. And a good friend of mine who's a pastor there, he told me that there were so many bodies, it was like leaves on the street. So this is another episode where you had war crimes that were committed very obviously in that street, where people had been told that they would be receiving bread to lure them out to the street where they could be killed. The last thing that I'll tell you that I saw there in those cities, I went to a high-rise condominium building. It was beautiful, like any modern high-rise apartment or condominium building that you'd find in America. It was very expensive, very fancy. The Russian forces occupied that building with the people still in their apartments and fired bullets through the doors. The doors were reinforced, so not easy to break into. But with the people inside, they took crowbars and pried those doors open and fired bullets through the door locks to try to gain access to those apartments. I think there were people killed in their apartments or drug out into the street and killed. And then the Russian military occupied that building and used it as a command headquarters in the city of Irpin. And I got to see the place where the Ukrainian army fought the Russian military there. They had a horrendous battle there. There were millions of bullet holes and places where grenades had exploded and explosives. And literally you look up at this, 12, 15-story building and there's just bullet holes everywhere. But my understanding is they were able to successfully take it back. And I have a friend whose daughter was in her apartment when the Russian soldiers were trying to break into the apartments, and they were not able to get her door open, and she miraculously survived. But I, walked through those hallways. I saw the doors, each one pried open, and I got to see what that looked like. And I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been for the people that were inside. Just awful. So we don't like to talk about this. This is not like fun for me to tell the story of what happened there, but I think it's really important for people to understand that's an invasion. It's not a war. And in my opinion, it looked like a genocide. There were a lot of war crimes that were committed there. And I personally saw evidence of that. And I actually picked up shell casings and pieces of buildings, and I brought them home with me, and I put them on my bookshelf so that I would remember always the things that happened there. It's just one of the dark moments in human history. Really, really awful what happened in those cities, unfortunately.
Correct. What you saw in those cities, that's devastating. And unfortunately, there are so many more. And thank you very much for highlighting that it's an invasion and it's a genocide. And thank you very much for caring. And it's kind of leads me to another question. Let's talk about Ameritech. Why did you start Ameritech, and how did your connection to Ukraine influence that decision?
Yeah, so the first trip that I made to Ukraine, which I just described to you, right, which was just a few weeks after the Russian forces withdrew out of those cities. On the first trip, the reason that I decided to go on that trip is because of something that I saw on Facebook, actually. So a good friend of mine, Vasily, asked me if I would come with him to Ukraine. And what really inspired me to go was a picture that I saw of a 6-year-old little girl who had been killed during the invasion. I think she was in Bucha. And I saw the picture of this beautiful little girl. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't bloody. It wasn't like patently inappropriate. But when I looked at the picture and I saw her body and I saw her, she had this beautiful blonde hair. It was braided, and this little pink, I think, shirt that she was wearing. And she was 6 years old. And I looked at that and I really saw my daughter. My oldest daughter at the time was 6 years old. And it just really made an impression on me. It really touched my heart to see that. And that was the moment where I was like, you know what? I'm 110% in. I want to go to Ukraine and I want to see what I can do to stop that from happening. Now, the problem is I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm not, some kind of super soldier. I don't have an army or a government or anything like that. I'm just a normal, everyday American person. So the only thing I could do to help was go there myself. I took a little bit of my own money with me, and we went and we supported programs, church programs that were working with orphans and widows whose husbands had died in the war, and also the elderly who were too medically fragile to be evacuated. That really hit me, talking to some of those elderly people, because they couldn't be evacuated. There's no way for them to escape and go anywhere. And they're laying there just worried that there's going to be a second wave of the invasion and that they're going to be captured or killed. So this was really heartbreaking. And after that first trip, when we were flying back to America, we thought, Ukraine is a tech hub globally. There's a tremendous amount of tech expertise that comes out of Ukraine. There's a lot of IT services firms in Ukraine. There's software companies in Ukraine. There's recruiting and staffing organizations that recruit IT people, UI, UX design firms. So we thought, okay, maybe there's a way that I can use my expertise in business and in sales specifically to help build bridges to connect the US tech sector with the Ukrainian tech sector. And for those who are watching that don't know me, that's my expertise. I've been in software and tech for 20 years. I worked in sales, selling enterprise software. And, I have some career highlights. I'm an expert at what I do. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a way, because all I've been doing for the last 20 years is connecting tech companies with customers and with partners and revenue. Maybe there's a way I can open those gates so that some revenue starts to flow into Ukraine to support the tech workers there. And if we could support the tech workers, we could support their family members. So each tech worker has 4 family members on average that they're supporting. And then those 4 family members usually have one soldier that they're supporting who's fighting on the front lines. So by my math, I kind of calculated it and figured that if we could support about 24 firms and they have, several hundred employees each, maybe we could indirectly support a few thousand Ukrainian people that way. And that's what we decided to do. And it was a totally crazy idea. The odds were stacked against us. 2024 was a really tough year in the tech industry. It seemed like everything was shrinking, not growing. Plus, you had the proliferation of AI, so you had a ton of layoffs that were happening. And so, we created a method for reaching out to US tech leaders as Americans and vouching for these 24 IT firms that we had identified in Ukraine that specialized in everything from AI, machine learning, computer vision, big data analysis, data science, XR technology, e-commerce, UI UX design, and on and on and on, right? And to my shock and amazement, we were able to generate 600 opportunities, conversations from about April 1st of 2024 until the end of December. And as we were meeting with people, when we got close to October, we started getting contracts signed, and some very small contracts and some very big contracts. So it was just really cool to see this picture of this 6-year-old little girl go from being an inspiration for us, for me personally, to make the trip over there. And then it led to this beautiful kind of program that helps support a lot of Ukrainian people and, moved a lot of revenue over into these tech companies that they otherwise may not have had. And I'm hoping that that was a big blessing for their employees and their family members. And I've looked, Christina, to try to find more information on that little girl. So I spent hours trying to find that same picture again, trying to find information maybe on that little girl or her family in Bucha because I have friends there. But I was never able to find the picture again. And it's really sad to me. I wish that I knew the parents or family members for that little girl, because I would love to do something special to bless their family. So if you're watching this and you're in Ukraine and maybe you live in Bucha or you're familiar with a 6-year-old little girl that passed away in the invasion with blonde braided hair, then, please put it in the comment section, because we would love to reach out to you and figure out who her family members are so that we can do something really special for them.
Thank you very much, Craig, for sharing that. And Ameritech is truly the meaningful impact. And I am actually very appreciative to be the part of an incredible company that helps my people, Ukrainian people, and that I can be, this small part and give my small, but I hope meaningful impact too.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Next question will be, what was the moment that really pushed you to act? Not just as the business leader, but as the person. And what made you say, what we have to do more?
Yeah. So this is, to me, it's like undeniable when you go to see Ukraine and you see what happened there. Now, I'm in a small, probably percentage of Americans that have actually been able to go there, and were actually able to go there right after the invasion happened. So I'm very fortunate to have a unique lens and perspective on that, and to be able to see what happened there and the damage that was done, both in human lives and in property. To me, I think that we have an obligation as humans living in this world. I'm not even going to say as Americans, but especially as Americans. But I think like all of us in the world have an obligation. When we see something like that happen, we have to step in and do something. And what's crazy to me, Christina, is how much controversy we have right now on the political spectrum when it comes to relations between America and Ukraine. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Hopefully that improves a little bit. I'm very saddened and troubled to see that. I'm very saddened and troubled to see Ukraine treated as a business agreement or business arrangement. It's not, and we shouldn't treat it that way. There were people who died. They lost their family members. They lost their children. They were brutalized, and in my opinion, we need to do everything that we can to help them, and we must. And it's not controversial at all. So really, because of what I saw there, the emotional reaction that I had is what compelled me actually to take action and to do something. And you know what? If people were able to see what I saw, I think that they would be motivated to do something too, because you cannot hold back when you see something like that. It hits you so hard on an emotional level that you cannot help yourself but do something. And people that I talk to, sometimes they say like, "Oh, Greg, you must have been really brave to go to Ukraine, when the war first started and all this stuff." I'm not. I'm not any braver than anybody else. I don't have any special courage or superpowers or anything like that. But what actually motivated me to take action was the deep sadness and compassion that I felt when I saw what happened to innocent Ukrainian people who were not soldiers or in any way posing a threat to the Russian military. And that invasion was unprovoked. There's absolutely no reason for it. And I just that's what motivated me. That's what caused me to snap and say, you know what, I'm going to go to Ukraine and I'm going to do whatever I can. And I want everyone to know that picture of that little girl who died in Bucha, her death is not meaningless. Her death changed something in me that caused me to take action. I'm even like tearing up just talking about it. It caused me to take action. So her death, it's tragic, but it caused something positive to happen. And not only did I take action, but now we've been able to get many, many people in the American tech sector to take action and help support Ukraine. And that's a beautiful thing. So in a trip like the one that I made when the invasion first happened, it's horrible, it's horrific, it's gruesome, it's sad, it's dark. But at the same time, you see the brightest shining love that you've ever seen in a situation like that. We have a saying that the brightest stars shine in the darkest skies. And that's really true. What I saw in Ukraine from normal people who were there, and there were other Americans there when I visited, I wasn't the only one. There were people there from Europe helping. I think that's wonderful. You saw the real goodness come out in humanity as a response to the horrible things that happened there. So I think that that's worth mentioning. When I toured those cities, somebody told me, Greg, don't just focus on the destruction, focus on the rebuilding. Show people how much is being rebuilt and how quickly it's happening. Show people the resilience and the strength of the Ukrainian people. Show people the love. We had some friends that were baking fresh bread and transporting food and firewood from Western Ukraine to Eastern Ukraine, where the fighting was happening, Christina. And I'll never forget, I was at a hotel in San Francisco and I got a text message from one of my contacts in Ukraine that showed me a picture of that bread delivery van. It had been destroyed as it was making its trip to deliver that bread. And the driver, who I didn't know personally, but is a good friend of my friends, was laying there dead in the road, surrounded by loaves of bread. And I think if we see something like that in America as we're eating our $27 breakfast at a hotel in San Francisco, and we don't do something, shame on us. Like how cold and calloused we must be not to take action and do something when we see something like that happening in the world. So I just want to tell the people in America that are watching this, maybe you have different political opinions. That's irrelevant, actually. When we have human suffering like that happens on this kind of scale, I think we must do something. We must act. And especially America must act. We must do something to help them. This is really, really important. I can't speak on this strongly enough.
Greg, once again, thank you very much. I think that will mean a lot to our Ukrainian listeners. And since you've touched a lot of different points, I would like to ask you also, there is a lot of talk out there about whether Americans still support Ukraine. From your perspective, talking to people, seeing reactions, how do Americans feel about Ukraine today?
Yeah. I might be the best person to ask this question too, because I have conversations with American tech leaders. And when I say tech leaders, what I mean by that, Christina, is founders, CEOs, vice presidents, SVPs, EVPs, people that have authority and ownership over US tech firms. When I talk to those people, 99.9% of them support Ukraine. I rarely hear somebody tell me that they don't. So I think that's really encouraging. The first thing I want to say is that's really encouraging. I don't think that the optics that you see on the news media are necessarily accurate. In my opinion, I think that the American people support the Ukrainian people to the tune of probably 90+%. But it's been politicized. It's been used as an instrument of division in politics, which people have to understand. That's the America that we live in. It's divided almost 50-50. And so it's really easy for issues to become politicized. But politicizing an issue like this, in my opinion, it's like off limits. But I'm telling you, like, we have to act and do something to help people that are being slaughtered in their own homes. This is just a horrible travesty. And that should not be political. It should not be politicized. There are still things that we all can agree on. And I think helping people that are being slaughtered, threatened, their very existence being threatened, I think it's something that we have to do. So I'm going to go out on a ledge and say that the American people are overwhelmingly 90% plus positive in their opinion of the Ukrainian people. And that's where I want for the most impact to happen. I would love to see the American people at mass mobilize and do things to help the Ukrainian people, not necessarily the American government helping the Ukrainian government. In my world, what I would like to see, American people helping Ukrainian people. And I think that bond is never going to be broken. We're very good friends between our countries, and we need to keep it that way. And we need to continue to support Ukraine as American people. The other thing that I'll say, which is troubling, I hear a lot of people in America say, well, once the war ends, we're happy to help with rebuilding Ukraine and kind of restoring Ukraine. When I hear that, it's actually kind of a warning sign to me, Christina, because what that tells me is they view it almost like an investment opportunity. But if they saw what I saw in Bucha, in Irpin, in Borodyanka, they would realize we can't wait. We have to do something to take action now. We cannot wait to see what's going to happen or to help rebuild. Ukraine's very existence is being threatened. Their people, their culture, their language. We have to take action now to prevent that from happening, because we don't want to be in a situation where there's nothing to rebuild. We need to act now. And that's the big message that I have for everyone that I talk to. Do something now to help Ukraine.
It's actually very powerful to know that there are Americans that still care deeply. And from my experience, as I worked here for almost 5 months, I've met so many wonderful Americans who truly support us, who truly believe in us and helps us. So thank you very much. And to all of our American listeners, thank you for being supportive. Thank you for donating, for voicing your opinions, and for believing in us. It truly means a lot to all of Ukraine and to all Ukrainian people. And, let's go back to a positive note. What was the moment that you encountered Ukrainian culture? So as an American, how do you see Ukrainian culture? What's something you think Americans can share with Ukrainians?
Good question. So when I traveled to Lviv, I told Vasily, let's take a day. Vasily's my co-founder. I told Vasily, let's take a day. And I really want to see Ukrainian culture. I want to see Ukrainian art. I want to hear Ukrainian music. I want to try Ukrainian food. I want to read some Ukrainian literature, see some famous Ukrainian literature, because I had found out that one of the things that Vladimir Putin said about Ukraine was that they don't have any culture. I knew that this was not correct. So I wanted to intentionally take a day and not do any like business or anything. I just wanted to spend that day learning as much as I could about Ukrainian culture. Now, fortunately, I was in Lviv, which is a bastion of Ukrainian culture. You know this, Christina, because you're there. So I had an opportunity to go shopping, to see traditional Ukrainian clothing with the Vyshyvanka pattern and everything on it, and the flowered kind of headdresses. I had an opportunity to be walking on the streets and hear people speaking Ukrainian, which is a beautiful language. And I've spoken to people who are linguists that speak multiple languages, and they love the Ukrainian language. And it's very beautiful when you hear it spoken. I had an opportunity to try probably too much Ukrainian food. I think I stopped at like 6 restaurants that day, and we tried different things, and it was incredible. We had some very good Ukrainian friends that were determined to show us the absolute best Ukrainian food that we could get in Ukraine, which was amazing. That's where I tasted smoked borscht for my first time. So I've had borscht before, but it was smoked and was really incredible. And vareniki, we had an opportunity to eat some and like just get around and try all different types of Ukrainian food. It was really fun. Let's see, what else? I went to the kind of the town square in Lviv, and they had older people that were singing traditional Ukrainian folk music. They were playing the instrument like kind of similar to an accordion and singing loudly in the street. And I had someone to kind of like translate the lyrics to me. It was so amazing to hear songs about love and visiting your neighbors and friendship. And there was not one song that in any way was bad or, violent or insightful in any way. It was peaceful and loving and just beautiful. And the people singing were so full of life and so happy. And that's kind of an undercurrent for the Ukrainian culture. Like, Ukrainians are a very resilient people. They've been through so much. You think about through like Soviet Union times, and you think about with the invasion and modern times and everything that the Ukrainian people have been through. But you still see Ukrainian people smiling and happy and joyful, and you still hear the joyful music, and you see them out like socializing with their friends, even in the cities we went to, which were heavily, heavily destroyed. If this happened in America, in one of our cities, if we had that level of destruction, nobody would be out walking on the street. They would have left the city. But here you've got people walking, laughing, fixing, repairing, working as hard as they can to get things built back up again. And it's just really inspirational to see that. So I'm not an expert in Ukrainian culture, but I know enough about Ukrainian culture to know that it's beautiful, wonderful. And I'm sorry, no, that's not true. Ukrainians do have a culture. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I've seen it. I love it.
That sounds exactly like Ukraine I know. Resilient, welcoming, and proud. And I can be more happy to know that there are people out there who loves Ukraine as much as I do, and as much as we all do here. And I personally invite all of our American listeners to come to Ukraine, because you heard how such a high praise that Greg told us today. So please, you are very welcomed here in Ukraine. Greg, thank you once again, not just for this conversation, but for your leadership and your heart. To everyone listening, this episode is a reminder. Behind every project we do, every partnership we build, there are real people in real cities surviving something unimaginable. We stand with Ukraine because it's the right thing to do, because freedom matters, and because we believe, like so many Americans do, that the Ukrainian people will win and they will rebuild stronger than ever. If this conversation moved you, please share it. Text someone, leave a comment. Let's make sure the world keeps listening and keeps standing with Ukraine.
Yes. Thank you so much, Christina. It was so nice talking to you. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to share my feelings and my heart for Ukraine. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. I appreciate it.